Well, hello everybody, back to playing on the Mockingbird project. As promised, we're going to put a quarter panel in, or at least a full quarter back on the back of the old convertible here. And a few things, of course, many things I shouldn't say. A lot of stuff has to be done prior to that. That's all in the previous videos. If you haven't seen those, you really need to go back and watch those. But either way, we're going to hang this quarter, get it put into place, get it final fitment, and then keep on working our way around the car. And then last but not least, the final piece, the tail panel. We're going to get that thing stuffed on the back of this thing here today. And as I've been talking to all you guys out there and learning the ups, downs, the ins, the outs, the good, the bad, and the ugly, I guess I kind of want to do ask a question here. You guys let me know in the comments. Which part of the project, say if you're going to build an entire car in your two-car garage at home, would you say is the part that you would say most struggle with or most challenge? Or basically, what part don't you want to do? Sheet metal work, body work, wiring, suspension. I'm kind of curious what you guys think might be the most challenging, because it may affect, it may be a different path what I do on some of these videos. I'm basically doing these cars bumper to bumper, front to back, and kind of showing you the highlights and important things to kind of give you some insight on how these things go back together. But it's not necessarily a step-by-step process, but at least get you some kind of idea so you can come up with your own creative solution to some of this madness I like to call playing cars. But nonetheless, I've rambled on. I'm going to show you kind of some of the things we did here behind the scenes here, get things ready to go, and then we'll get that bad boy put on. Now, unfortunately, it's like 10 degrees of not warm here in Indiana today, so I can't put the old beast outside. It's snowing and raining and whatever madness is coming down out there. So be a little crowded here for working and cameraing in, but we'll make it happen. Obviously, you've got the fender well. All our inner structure has been painted, cleaned up. I've welded the full length of the thing. Got everything prepped. This red stuff you see here is weld through primer. I do re-weld them to here, and there's two spot welds go below the door striker. I like to put those all back in. I really feel it kind of helps tie the car together. Now you guys already know we drill some holes in that, and we'll actually screw that down to that inner, or the outer, rocker panel. Now I'll go in through this little hole here, and I weld right to the rocker panel, similar to how the factory was done. And here's some of the welding I already did here. Behind the scenes, you'd say, trunk drop-off is installed. And the other thing you want to make sure you do on your trunk drop-off, it's a whole lot easier if you go ahead and weld this vertical face here. Do all your spot welds in that part there. Go ahead and get that knocked out. And then the other thing you don't do, I don't typically tie these together until I get the quarter panel on. Just gives you a little more of adjustment in and out on this piece here on the trunk drop-off. Make sure you get it really lined up for the best fit to the quarter panel. But other than that kind of sums things up. The quarter panel itself, the only thing I would suggest doing, I've already kind of covered this, but that bottom lip, you see I pre-drilled some holes. Makes your life a lot easier in trying to get inside of this compartment to weld that down there to the outer rocker panel. But as for the rest of it, well, let's see. Gonna give myself once more a little something. I'm gonna show you about that later. We'll talk about that in a bit. Other than that, I think we're okay. Oh yeah, if you're gonna install the full quarter with the trunk gutter in it, trim this lip about 1/4 inch, 3/8 inch. Again, this one is a bit of a review, but it's your first time around. Don't want you to miss those things and say, you didn't tell me, and get upset, and I don't want to hurt nobody's feelings, you know. A little bit of a dent right there. I'll do some work, but hey, these are OER panels. I've tested them on once, dry, look great. This is gonna be our final fitment. I'll go ahead and get it stuffed on my car here and get things clamped into place. Bam, just like that, TV magic, she's back on there. I've got about 20-30 minutes worth of, I used to say screwing around, putting some screws in this, but what I want to do, I got this, we already knew we tested this, the dry fit worked out great. Now I'm going to permanently weld this thing in, but before we pull the trigger on that welder, a few things I want to show you, or take some notes, right? That's what we're getting into, because I figured, putting this back on was kind of self-explanatory, but where to weld it and why I'm going to weld it, and why I stop at certain points, that's what I want to share with you. Door jamb, let's start here. As you can see here, your typical spot weld is the obvious one, right down through that whole thing down the radius. Now we get down here on the bottom for the dog leg. I got some holes pre-drilled. I'm going to weld that to that rocker panel. Ones I add that are from the factory, I think get skipped a lot. One here and two below the striker. See my screws there. I feel those ones get skipped sometimes. I'm not sure 100% why, but I like to put them back in. I feel it really pulls that together tight. Because my goal is to make this car more rigid than it was from the factory. Because if you guys remember the previous videos, when I pulled those spot welds loose, I literally just took a pair of side cuts and peeled it like a sardine can. Most welds didn't even penetrate. Here we go on the door jamb here. There's some this way. I put 3 on the top. There is no metal behind this part here, and then 2 here, and really draws that together. So those are some of the ones I think that might get skipped. So just showing you, make sure you do those, or I would suggest doing those. Down inside it's kind of hard to see, but there's some screws. You see a shiny spot there. Oh, you can't make out the other end, but I've got only 3 screws right now tying it down, but I got all those holes drilled, so when I go to weld the rocker panel and the quarter panel together, it'll be like it was from the factory. Now let's get here to the wheel well arch. Something to keep in mind, the factory actually welded the outside face of this rocker panel to that outer fender well. So I plan to do the same thing. So I'm gonna come through here, probably another one here, and actually one on the bottom here, tying that all in really tight. Again, back to the whole thing, all this metal has these bends. It gives it strength, and the more it's tied to every piece, the more rigid and strong your car is going to be. Now, I've actually got these about every 2 inches apart all the way till we get just back here where you see the fender well starts to open back up again. I don't put any back here. Not until I get my tail panel, where this quarter panel, let me climb around back here, where it tucks in behind that tail panel, I got to get that gap adjusted and welded first. And then I come back up here and then secure all this. But in order to get this welded, I need to remove the tail panel. That'll be one of the next things we do here, but tail panel is in place just for mock-up. Like I said, this is like the last piece of the puzzle for me when building these cars. I like the gap here, looking good. I got my little line lined up to highlight it, but this just, I can't get it to push in, and not to mention there's welds behind this. So I need to take the tail panel off anyway, so I've made some notes. I need to move this top corner in about 1/8 of an inch. By the time I get down here at the bottom, I need 3/8 of an inch pulled over. I've got this clamped for now because when I pull the tail panel loose, there's a good chance this quarter panel is going to go shift down. And if I go ahead and weld this, I'll never get this line back up, or I won't be able to get my bolts back through here for the bumper mounts. That's why I use for a kind of alignment hole. So I'm going to clamp this, and I'll show you the next thing we pull this tail panel off, how to get this pulled in before we weld it. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and remove the tail panel. I've got that side clamped, this side clamped on the bottom down here like I just showed you. So I'm going to go ahead now to remove my tail panel. Take the couple screws out. I have a nut and a bolt there. This should pop right out. These are nice alignment pin holes now I've got on each side. So I go to put it back together. I know how this tail panel goes back in. It should dial in real nice. Like I said, I've still got my center line mark looking right there on the money. So super happy with that. So anyway, nonetheless, I'm going to get this tail panel ripped out of the way. I'll show you how to get that welded. And just like that, tail panel removed, right? Just a couple screws, pretty self-explanatory feel, but here's where we need to do something here. This is our point. I need to move this thing in 1/8 inch compared to the rest of the world. The other thing I don't want to happen is the elevation to change between the quarter panel and the trunk floor. So it's a pretty simple little procedure, but it's gonna make me some lines straight across. That way if something changes, I have a reference point. So to take that clamp loose, to take that loose, I gotta take it loose to get this to slide in. And if this thing shifts down, I'll be able to have a little telltale sign here that things have moved. Now, with that also being said, I know this needs to come in 1/8 of an inch. So basically, this is the quarter panel. That's my trunk drop-off. Trunk drop-off is stationary. So if I actually draw myself a little arrow, and I know this thing comes almost flat with the actual trunk drop-off in this case, that's all the further that needs to go, and that'll be right where I need it to be. And then down here at the bottom, I know this panel, quarter panel, in relationship to this here, needs to move over 3/8 of an inch. So I'm gonna get my tape measure out. I made myself a little mark. I'm gonna make a little hash mark at 3/8 of an inch. So when I pull this over, I know where to stop. That's gonna be the next one. Grab my tape measure. I figured I'd drag you along for this. Like I said, I got my reference marks here on the horizontal. Look at that thing straight across. I got some lines. So when I pop this clamp loose, I don't know exactly how far it's going to move, but I suspect it's gonna be some. So let's find out. And it did. It made a liar out of me. But anyway, but you get the idea. I've had that before where it shifts down. So at least now I have a point to reference. Now we're going to hook up my, my ratchet strap there. And we're going to pull this thing over. And then we'll probably either put a tack weld or a screw in it. And then I'll go as far as probably even test fit the tail panel one last time to confirm that I like the gap. And then we're going to come through here and then weld these all together. The trunk drop off to the quarter panel here. Once that's all good, then we can finish putting the screws across the bottom and the wheel well arch, and then we can burn this thing in permanently. All right, got it pulled over a little more gooder. Our lines are still on the same plane, so I didn't change elevation. It did shift some as I was pulling it over. Came down ever so slightly, but just shoved a pry bar right through here, pried up on our vibration dampener, pulled the thing back up, got my lines looking good. I was able to get this over just a little past the actual trunk drop off, so I know it definitely got my 1/8 inch. The bottom, I couldn't quite get it to my line. We're about 1/16 of an inch shy, but I think it's gonna make for a pretty decent body line through here. So I'm gonna grab the tail panel, I'm gonna throw it back on the back for hopefully our last final test fitment, and then we'll work on welding this all together. And then next go around, we'll get the tail panel put on permanently. Then we'll have a completed body shell ready to go to the media blaster. All right, here's our final tail panel adjustment. Looks good all around here, still lying up there. The gap is a little wider than I like, maybe by 1/16 of an inch, but it's even and it's pulled up good. So I'm gonna call that good. Like I said, we've got an AMD OER tail panel. This stuff's not original, and this is some guy putting this good in his garage. So I'm gonna call that good. I love it. I'm gonna go ahead and pull this back off. We're gonna weld that, all that seam right through there. I'll go ahead and clamp all that into place, and that should get you where you need to weld. What's the little things you want to take notes of, kind of thing, of installing a quarter panel on a first-gen F-body convertible. For those of you who want to see how I do this really quickly, is all these screws are lined up. The process is take every other screw out on this entire seam, and then weld all those up, then take the other screws out. I'm only going to do a couple here so you can see how it works. Move one, two. And what we'll do after that is enlarge just the top layer of the metal. If I've got 3 layers of metal, you drill through 1 and 2 till you just hit the base metal. Just give it a place for the wire to go, and ensure you get good penetration through all the layers all the way down to the base. This is only 2 layers, so I'm just going to basically dig through the top layer ever so slightly with a drill bit. Not to go all the way through, but just enough to get to the layer underneath. There we go. Now those are prepped. And what I'll do then, let's imagine I did every other weld, but I just go bang, 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 bang down the entire seam. If I get this right, the weld lays out really flat, and I don't have to do any grinding or buffing. Okay. Show what that looks like here up close. And what that looks like up close, and as long as you did a pretty decent job, is it lays down really flat. There's not like a lot of height for that weld. It lays down real good. And it comes all the way through here to the inside. So again, it kind of resembles a spot weld a whole lot. Now I do that whole procedure across the entire seam. I do that through the trunk jam and down the back of the car, inside the door jam. This is why I always make a joke of 11 billion plug welds later. You can see how you end up doing a lot of them, and you get really good at doing it after a bit. But that's how we do that. Okay, get that all finished up to that entire seam now. Quarter panel all welded in here through the trunk gutter. Tie this all in here back like this. All our spot welds all through here. Got the 2 impossible ones right there, that little bracket. That's taken care of super nice. And then door jamb. Got these all laid in really nice. And these will actually clean up just when I sandblast. They're almost perfectly flat, and they look just like the spot welds in my opinion. All through the door jamb is good. The 2 here at the striker plate is good. And then what that looks like on the inside is just the same thing. It burns through. It looks pretty solid. Looks pretty nice. That's looking pretty good. And then the wheel well arch, did all those around there. Then we do underneath here on the drop off here at the back of the quarter panel. And the ones that are my least favorite, I was getting these ones all done, but they are all tied in nice and clean. So I'll wire brush these off a little bit, put a coat of primer on that in preparation for putting the tail panel on. Oh, I almost forgot my favorite ones down inside here. Now, if you look down in there, very bottom, you'll see all those little plug welds. Not as beautiful because I'll tell you what, you gotta be a bit of a contortionist to get in there, but it is 100% welded in and ready to move on to the next. So there you have it. Both quarter panels completely welded in here on the 1969 Firebird, the Mockingbird. The next step will be the last piece of the puzzle is that tail panel. I've started there at the front of the car, worked my way all the way back, as you can see. And then after I get that piece welded in, you might have caught it. I sent it to media blasting after the fact. Now, I know some people say that seems to be out of sequence for them, but you saw how much metal I cut out of this car. Why would I spend hundreds of dollars to have all that sandblasted just to cut it off and throw it in the trash? I started to come back and strip all this EDP coating. All the welds, one of the best preps for welding is media blasting. It gets everything out of the welds, and it actually holds up, seals up, and paints better. So I just kind of see it as an easy way to get everything clean that I did not replace, which that's good, and then even gets this EDP coating off and then preps all of my welds for my future bodywork. So maybe it seems out of sequence for you, but to me it makes perfect sense. So I'm going to spend the money. I want to spend on the money. Spend the money on the parts that I'm going to keep using, including the new ones I just installed. So Anyway, tail panels next video go around, and then we'll start working on getting the front sheet metal, subframe, drivetrain, everything all work together, get this thing knocked out. And of course, I will definitely be grabbing the camera, and I hope to see you guys next time.